A few months ago, the Mexican drug lord, the Godfather, arrived to LA's International Airport. In a surprising move by the New York's Attorney's Office, he was arrested without the possibility of bail with criminal charges of military operations of drug trafficking, working with U.S. officials in drug trafficking, international drug trafficking of cocaine, methamphetamine, and marijuana, and of course, money laundering. Wow, that was a lot of trafficking. But guess what? The Department of Justice requested his release and let him go back home to keep up the good work. Even though these news are a few months old, this is important not because the mainstream media didn't report on it accurately, but because these are the kind of news that will never expire. This will go down in history as a historical fact that has accurately, explicitly, and clearly exposed the incompetence, corruption, and injustice of the Department of Justice. Honestly, this wouldn't surprise me if this has happened in Mexico or any other country, but the fact that it happened here in the US is what makes it so alarming and so unacceptable. Now, before I continue, there is something I want to be clear about. Not all the officials at the Department of Justice are this corrupt and involved in such criminal behavior. As a matter of fact, the people at the New York's Attorney's Office that made possible the arrest of the Godfather are an example of the real justice, patriotism, and fearlessness and courage to the entire nation and the whole world. And we need more of those. We will always need more of those. Okay, now let's jump right into the details. It turns out that the Godfather, whose legal name is Salvador Cienfuegos, is the former Mexico's Secretary of National Defense. For those who do not know him, here in this country he's known as the Godfather. He was an army general for many years, and from 2012 to 2018, he was Secretary of National Defense in Mexico. In simple words, in Mexico, he was the one with full executive power over the entire national army. He was el jefe de jefes, the chief of chiefs. And most of his drugs trafficking operations were directly connected with the H2 cartel, one of the most violent drug cartels in Mexico. It turns out that he was under investigation for the past several years, and there were tons and tons of evidence against him. And on October 15 of this year, upon his arrival to LA, he was detained and arrested. There you have the memo. Can you believe that? They finally arrested the biggest and most powerful drug lord from Mexico and the entire world probably. But let me tell you something. Probably you heard about El Chapo Guzman, Pablo Escobar. Well, those drug traffickers are tiny, small fishes compared to the Godfather. But guess what? In less than a month, he was released by the Department of Justice and was sent back home to keep up with the good work. Here's the memo. What? They let him go because the United States has determined that sensitive and important foreign policy considerations outweigh the government's interest in pursuing the prosecution of the defendant? Excuse my French, but what the is that? There you have it. The Department of Justice is not about doing justice anymore, but about doing whatever fits their agenda, even if it comes at a regrettable price to its citizens. It is important to understand the magnitude of all this to understand why some of the Department of Justice are protecting drug lords. We're talking about tons and tons of drugs that are grown, harvested, and trafficked into the United States every year. For such a magnitude of drug trafficking, the participation of someone with absolute power in the government is required. And this is where all begins to fall in place. Under the Godfather command, the Mexican National Army was in charge of helping in growing and moving the drugs into the United States. Financial institutions such as Wall Street banks help with the financing and money laundering, and pharmaceutical companies are the #1 client. It is well known that. A few years ago, several banks, Wall Street banks, were investigated for their participation in drug trafficking and money laundering, and guess what? You got it right. Nothing was done about it. Even worse, Many federal DA officials were caught celebrating with the drugs and prostitutes of the drug traffickers that they were supposedly investigating. Also public news. They even had a congressional hearing about it.
Honestly, what power do you have? You have to work with agents over whom you can't discipline and have no control, and you have no control over the security clearance. What the hell do you get to do?
What I can do is build on and improve mechanisms to make sure that the outcome is what we believe the outcome should be. And that is what happened in Cartagena. That is what's going to happen moving forward.
Inspector General Horowitz, I find that stunning. Let me ask you this. Did the agents know that the cartels were providing the prostitutes?
What we found, Congressman, from looking in the file was that they should have known, given their trained law enforcement agents, and they were dealing with corrupt law enforcement, local law enforcement, that was providing them with the prostitutes as well as the various gifts.
Were they supposed to be investigating these cartels?
They were.
So they are receiving prostitutes from cartels that they are supposed to be investigating. And she can't fire those agents. You agree with her? She can't fire them?
I think as a matter of Title V, she can't directly intervene and fire them.
Administrator Leonhardt, do we know whether any of the prostitutes were underage? Do we know whether any of them were part of any human trafficking rings?
Because the Bogota case happened a decade ago, there were no interviews of prostitutes. On the more recent one, the Cartagena one, it did not identify an age for the prostitute involved.
Mr. Chairman, I would just find it impossible to explain to any reasonable-minded person how an agent cannot be disciplined for soliciting prostitutes from drug cartels that they were ostensibly investigating. I find that stunning.
If the gentleman...
Can you believe that? As I said, most of that was already known. But what was not revealed so explicitly yet was the active participation in the betrayal of the Department of Justice to the American people. You know what makes me more upset about this? In part, it's not even that the Department of Justice protects powerful drug traffickers or their corruption in general. It is expected at some level. But what is very outrageous and unacceptable is that when it comes to people like you or I, they don't let one go. They will employ all their resources to come after you or me for things such as a parking ticket, let alone a DUI. They won't let you off the hook. No way. They're going to make you pay for what you did. They have to make justice, to do justice. Even worse nowadays, you happen to be out in the store without a COVID mask, you're done, you're finished. By the time you want to leave the place, there are 10 police officers surrounding you, eager to make justice, to enforce the law. That's disgusting. Such a justice system is a danger to its citizens. The tragedy of our time is that honest people lack fire and conviction. And to those officials that lack fire and conviction but are good and honest people, I will assure you, even though evil makes more noise, goodness will always win. Don't let those corrupt and incompetent people at the Department of Justice give everyone a bad name and destroy the American people. We don't want them. We don't need them. Please subscribe, leave your comments, and share the video. The link for the YouTube channel is attached below. Subscribe, and if you want to go the extra mile in supporting your channel and you want to make a donation, the link will be at the subscription. Thank you.